Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the September segment of National Preparedness Month with OEM. We are broadcasting from two pages today from Fairfax Counties and also the Office of Emergency Management, which is Ready Fairfax. I would like to welcome our guest, Seamus Mooney, our emergency coordinator for the Office of Emergency Management, who will be giving us a little bit of a background about him and also some projects related to our office, and also give us a little more on his focus in terms of preparedness, mitigation, and all the phases of the core phases of our agency. Before we get started, I would like to encourage you to ask questions, post comments, share this posting with others so that we can reach as many people as possible. And then at the end of today's segment, we will record this and post it so that you can again share your comments. And we would like to encourage you to also follow the month's theme, which is it's National Preparedness Month. Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. You've seen a lot of our postings related to the different themes of the week. This week, the theme is, and I have my notes here with me, help your neighbors and help your community. That is something that we in emergency management hold dearly because it takes a whole village to prepare and to be a resilient community, and we count on you to check on your neighbors. Next week's segment or next week's theme will be practice and build out your plan. So we will go a little bit into detail, but as you know, we have been recording a lot of PSAs with our local channel 16, and also we've been translating those PSAs into Spanish with Telemundo. So we have a great partnership with them. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome again.
Thank you.
This is his first time with our Facebook Live. You've done many PSAs with our agency. So tell us, when did you start with our agency?
So I started September 3rd last year, so I've been with the agency just over a year.
Wow, okay. And tell us a little bit about your background and where you came from.
Sure. So prior to working here, I was the director in Frederick County, Maryland. Prior to that, I worked for the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA. I've worked for the state of Maryland, as well as a couple other counties in Virginia.
And fun fact, Seamus and I worked not together, but at the same county in different times for Prince William County. So as we always say, our family in emergency management is very small, and we cross paths at different times.
Yes.
So tell us about your focus in emergency management now that you're leading a very large county.
Well, I think the first thing it starts with is you start with preparedness, our preparedness message, trying to get as much information out as we can, as many sources as we can to try and make the public more prepared. That also extends on the government side, so trying to make our employees more prepared, but also working with our agencies with continuity of operation plans, making sure they're prepared. The response side, Fairfax County does a very good job in response. We have to a lot of large incidents, even special events like the World Police and Fire Games. So there, it's more just me getting up to speed with how we're doing response. Recovery, that is one area that we're going to be focusing on coming up. We have a pre-disaster recovery plan that is up for redo. So we're going to be rebuilding that plan to make sure that we're following some of the lessons learned from other areas that have done extensive recovery. And then mitigation. Mitigation is actually where I started in emergency management, so I have a soft spot for mitigation. So again, mitigation is trying to reduce your exposure to hazards and trying to limit their impact on both yourself as a homeowner or as us as a county in areas where we have problems that we want to try to address.
So we always concentrate on preparedness. We've done a segment on planning, but I don't think we've ever touched on on mitigation, and I'm glad that it's one of your strong suits and your subject areas that you call a soft area or your soft spot. Can you, to those that are watching us, can you just explain or give ideas on how an individual can mitigate their circumstance to a disaster?
Sure, I think, it starts with them looking at their own situation. If you, let's say, have a propane tank in your backyard because you use it for heating, is that propane tank A, underground, or B, if it's sitting above ground, is it bolted down? Then if you get flooding in your backyard, it won't float away from your home. Mitigation can be simple things, like if you have your washer and dryer in your basement, you tend to get water. You can put those up on pallets just to get them up a little bit, to elevate them off the floor. It's something more elaborate, like a generator, if you're solely relying on electricity, or battery backups for your sump pump. If you're on well water, which we have a good bit of the county that is, battery backup for that pump, so you still have fresh water coming into the house. Those are all mitigation activities that you can do that help reduce your exposure. Also, as simple as, we just had the threat of a hurricane. Mitigation actions could be going out, looking at your gutters, making sure they're not clogged, clearing your downspouts away, making sure all of that is sound, so when you do get water on your roof, it's flowing away from your home.
One of the questions that we often get asked when we are out in the community is, how are we mitigating our threat, and how are we planning ahead if we see that there may be a potential for an incident?
So one of the big mitigation activities going on in the county right now is obviously down in Huntington, the levee project. That is a mitigation activity, so we're putting a barrier in to try and reduce the flood exposure down there. We also do it as far as putting out signs for areas that may have roads that may flood frequently. We do it at intersections where we know we lose power that are critical. We have actually hookups there, so we can put generators out there to make sure that intersection can keep regulating traffic, so we can keep things moving. So we do a lot of activities regarding mitigation. But again, mitigation is one of those things that there's always more work to do and more opportunities. So, people, as they start seeing issues in the community, letting us know where they're seeing those issues, then we can start to look at it. Are there mitigation actions that we can take?
And one of the platforms where you could share that is certainly here on Facebook. We monitor our social media very, very often. So also on Twitter, but you can always reach out to us at using our email, which is OEM-outreach@fairfaxcounty.gov. Let us know as our coordinators, letting you know if we need to hear from you, and we need to know what's going out on the ground so that we can help. Then the other piece is, as an emergency manager, you have an extensive background between federal agencies, state and local. What are some things that, as you've been moving through the different areas of emergency management, what comes up as a common denominator or as a need from the community?
One of the biggest things, I think, especially looking after an incident happens, is people knowing their insurance coverage. I'm not an insurance coverage expert by any means, but knowing what's covered under your insurance, if you have a finished basement, what exactly would be covered if you got flooded? And again, if you don't have flood insurance, if there are criteria in there that relate specifically to that versus I had a sewer backup in there or my hot water tank broke, those are all different categories within your insurance. So knowing your insurance coverage, talking to whoever you get your insurance through about, hey, here's what I'm concerned about, would this be a big add to my insurance policy? Understanding those things of what's covered and what may not be covered and making sure you're comfortable with those is always something that we struggle with. A good example of that would be, if you have a wind event and it puts a tree down on your property, insurance is not going to pay to have that tree removed, unless it's laying on a structure or an automobile, then it can be, but outside of that, it's going to be your responsibility to take care of that.
So it sounds like someone just needs to take the time to look over your insurance coverage and also your local hazards, right?
Yes.
To see what you're prone to.
Yep.
The other question that we often get asked is, what keeps you up at night as an emergency manager of a population that is 1.2 million?
I think, we have a lot of hazards that we face here, but most of them are not like what we're seeing down in Florida or in Texas. It's a blatant hazard that everyone rallies around. It's not a hurricane, it's not an earthquake. So all of those hazards that we do have, they're all kind of at the same level. So people become complacent because, oh, that hasn't happened here, or, well, we got snow 2 years ago and it was bad, but we haven't had a flood event in a long time. So understanding that as you're seeing things happen in other places in the country, they can happen here, and making sure that you're trying to prepare for all the things that may impact you, your home, your family, is really what keeps me up at night.
One of the things that we often see is, like you said, there's something happening, and that's when people start asking the questions and getting engaged with us. How can you, if you had an idea to engage someone throughout the year in preparedness, what would you tell them?
I think you look at it by season. So, every 3 months or so, you look at it and say, okay, what are the hazards coming up this season? If it's in spring, it's flooding. In the summer, it's, heat related, things like that, hurricane. In the fall, you're starting to prepare for winter. So understanding by season, these are the things that could impact us. Obviously, once if you have kids, once they go back to school, there's a whole nother level of complexity with them being out of the home and trying to get back together with them. So I'd say you just look at it seasonally and just say, okay, how can I be affected this season?
So, and also, as you mentioned, if your kids are going back to school, or if for new families, take a look at your family structure, the changes, and start making those updates according to your new challenges and your new changes. The other thing that I think it's interesting is we put so much effort into making sure that that we communicate with our public and that we share information. We have different platforms to share that information, which is one, social media, the other is the alerting system. Tell us from your perspective on that instant alerting. What is the benefit of that? That's something that we get asked pretty often.
By registering for the Fairfax Alert System, one, you're enabling us to push emergency messages to you. You're also telling us what's the best way to reach me. So if it's, you want it via text message, you want a phone call, you want an email, you're really helping us provide the message to you in a format that best suits you and your situation. You can also in there identify up to 5 locations. So you say, I want alerts around my child's school, around my office, around my parents' house. You can set those all up so you can get alerted if things are happening in those areas. Also on the severe weather side, you can do a lot of customization with our system. So you can go in and say, I only want information related to tornado or thunderstorm, or maybe you're a pilot and you say, hey, I want any fog related issues. So you can really customize on the weather side also what you want.
And for the addresses, you're able to get the different locations within Fairfax County for the weather alerts. You can add addresses for anywhere in the country, or so that's another question that people ask. If, say, for example, I live in Prince William, but I work in Fairfax County, I have to sign up for both of the systems to receive traffic information from both areas.
Correct. So we partner in the National Capital Region. So Montgomery, Prince George's, the District of Columbia, Fairfax County, Arlington, Alexandria, Prince William, and Loudoun all have the same notification system. And you can sign up, and through their app, you can actually get notifications for all of those locations. So if you happen to live in Loudoun and work in DC, you could actually sign up to get alerts all the way through to know for traffic and weather as you're trying to commute in and out of the district every day.
I see that we have a number of people that are watching us live. Make sure that you post a question, you ask, or you post a question and also a comment, and we're here to engage with you. We're using virtual platforms in order to reach people from the comfort of your work, home, school, wherever you are, so make sure that you're engaging with us. The other piece is, this year's theme is Disaster Zone Plan Ahead. You can. Could you give 2 practical tips for people to become prepared ahead of time?
I think it starts with doing a family plan, and that first step is actually just having a conversation. Conversation with all your family members there, just about, hey, you know, here's what could impact us, here's what we would do, and talking through those points has a lot of benefits. So, you know, identifying an out-of-area contact so you can call them, identifying a place to meet outside your home and also outside your neighborhood. So if you can't get back into your neighborhood because of severe weather or something going on, where should the family all try and meet up? I think that's what I would say would be the first thing.
What are the challenges that we see in this area in terms of a disaster hits us, so it's not a planned disaster, it's an earthquake? What have we seen in the past?
I think one of the biggest things, obviously, is people's capacity to respond. So, you know, if you have a single-family home with a couple cars, you know, you probably have things to shovel snow and do some things that to help you respond to that incident. Capacity to store more supplies. Versus if you're a renter and you're a single, you know, you're in a 1-bedroom, you know, you may not have the same level of resources. So you're more dependent to try and deal with that as they come up. So again, just looking at it and saying, you know, this could affect me this season. You know, maybe I want to put a snow shovel in the trunk of my car.
Right.
Maybe I want to have a second one for up at my next to my condo,
right,
so I can dig my way down there if I need
right,
to, if I need to get to my automobile. So again, just looking at, you know, this is my current situation, here's what I think may happen, and trying
right,
to prepare for that.
So the other thing that we were at Ready, Set, Know this past weekend in Burke for the Burke Festival, and we were letting people know that if you signed up for the alerting system, you would have gotten that email that we pushed out or that text message about Irma. So last Friday, we sent out a mass email to all our subscribers, letting them know what to expect, how we're preparing, and what to do if we were impacted by Hurricane Irma. And it brought a lot of, I guess, a lot of awareness as to why being informed is so important. What can you tell us in terms of Hurricane Jose? What are we expecting?
Right now, I mean, Jose's out, you know, out there, and it's kind of spinning in a circle. At some point, it's going to start again moving west. The cones right now show that it's kind of flattening out a little, which is a little more concerning because then it may come closer to the United States. So again, anytime that wave comes off of Africa and it starts moving west, there is a level of concern. I think the biggest thing is just for everyone to kind of keep an eye on it and understand that, you know, that could have the potential to impact us.
And then the other piece is when we're seeing that something is about to happen, or there were a lot of, okay, thank you. Someone's giving me our talking points. Some of my friends, personal friends that are in Florida, they were wanting to know where to get information from. In we always tell people, connect with your emergency management offices. And I think that that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that there is an emergency management at the local level in every jurisdiction, city, county. And so can you just give us an overview of what the structure looks like so that we can as people are sharing this video with others, they can understand that they can get in touch with their emergency management professionals in their area where they can gather information from.
Sure, a lot of it depends on the structure of the state or commonwealth that you're going to. So some of them, like New York, Pennsylvania, are very much at the smallest level of government where they have most of the functionality, versus Virginia, Maryland is more at a county level. So what I would say is when you're going, a great example is you're going on vacation to Florida. I would first start looking at the town that I was staying in, then I would start looking at the county that I was going to, and just seeing what information they have. It's also good, obviously, this time of year, it's hurricane season. So if you're going to go on vacation to a hurricane state, getting an understanding of their alerting system, of their flood zones, where you may be staying, is a good idea. As we looked at how they were evacuating the Keys for Irma, the first people they asked to leave were the people that were on vacation. So again, listening to the locals where you're going and understanding how they're going to respond could be beneficial to your vacation.
And our last question is, you as an emergency management professional, how do you prepare with your family?
Sure. So we have, my family has a plan. I have 2 children in daycare. So we have a plan for my wife or I to go get them. We also have a relative that is in the area, so they are also on the list, so they could actually go pick the children up if we needed to. We've identified a place outside the home, outside the area. We have a contact set up. We do have kits set. We do have go bags that we keep in our automobiles. A lot of it is right now child related, so we have extra diapers and things like that.
I know how you feel.
we get stuck it somewhere, but we do keep a bit of supplies in both automobiles, and again, we have our preparedness kits set in a place in the home that is interior area, lowest level in case there's a tornado or something, and then we're able to go down there with those supplies.
And as a fellow parent, I can attest to the amount of things that we need to have in order to keep our little ones okay for a long period of time. During, I believe it was 2 segments ago, I brought in my go bag and I showed the amount of things that I have. And we also have those go bags for each of our staff members here at our office. In case we need to stay for a long period of time and it's unexpected. And we encourage you to ask your employer to maybe come up with a similar program. But as we close our segment, our last theme for the week is getting involved. Why is it so important for us to build a leadership component in our community and encourage others to become involved and to become active when it comes to looking after their neighbor, being a part of the community and taking care of not only themselves and their families, but taking care of each other? How does that affect us in emergency management and in public safety?
I think it starts with the whole 72-hour conversation, and there are times, snow is a good example of this, where we may not be able to get out for a while. So having a community coalesce around itself and understanding, how they may help one another and sustain themselves until we can get in there, I think is a great model to follow. They're talking right now in the Keys that 25% of the homes have been completely destroyed. So the people are going to try and have to help themselves,
right.
Clear a path in, help them clear debris, help each other recover. So there are a lot of very capable people in the county. We have a lot of great places that they can volunteer. Citizen Corps is a good example of that. And they've really gone to a neighborhood setup as well. So they're trying to coalesce around a neighborhood or an HOA and identifying the people in that area that are trained. And then you can identify people that have resources, who has a snow blower, who has a 4-wheel drive, things like that you can help yourselves as a community build a response capability.
And one of the things that we pushed out this week regarding helping your neighbor is coming up with a captain block sort of coordination among your own community or your own neighborhood. So even if you live in a complex, an apartment or a condo, you can still do that for your floor. You could identify the one or second, two or three people in your condominium or your apartment to be those leaders in sharing information, coming up with a coordination of, what would we do if we were to lose power, where to get information from the county about shelters and transportation and different resources that would be available through the county government.
I think that's a good point. I mean, I think people identifying what they consider their community, again, it might be the floor, it might be the block in there, it might be their cul-de-sac, it may be their church,
Right.
Or their, their one of their local organizations that they belong to. Community means different things to different people, but understanding, this is what community is to me, and this is how I want to kind of help organize that area, I think is a key.
And then the other piece that I've heard from many people is that when someone comes into their neighborhood, they share information about their alerting system or past events that have happened. I know for us, my husband and I, we share that information with people that are moving into our area so that they know their local hazards. We're not in a flooding zone, however, we're pretty high up that we have seen tornadoes around our area. So we let people know, sign up for this alerting system that will give you that information and help you plan ahead just a little bit more so that we can create that resilient community. The other question that came in is, do you recommend any apps that would be helpful to either prepare or keep someone informed?
Sure. So we have an app through Fairfax Alerts that you can get. The county has an app as well that you can go and for Fairfax County, and there's information on there. The Red Cross has a very good app, and so does FEMA, where they have checklists and things that you can do to help improve your preparedness.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Seamus.
Thank you.
That is all the time that we have for this segment. I want you to make sure that you're tuning in to Facebook and also Twitter to get updates. This month we are partnering with 5 different libraries where we're showcasing different kinds of go bags. That information will be posted as part of the comments, and then also make sure that you join us next October 14th at the Providence Community Center for Preparedness Awareness Weekend. It is a event that will be in partnership with many partners, so stay tuned regarding that, but it's October 14th from 10 in the morning to 2 p.m. Thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure to have you in our Facebook Live segment, and I look forward to seeing you here more.
Okay, thanks.
Take care.